Here we go. Following morning, we're taking off and we're heading to Buffalo. This is the last leg of the Erie Canal. Once we leave Buffalo, that'll be it, the end of it. The Erie Canal actually still exists in Buffalo, but it has been blocked off, uh, and there's been a wall put up there for, I guess, because it's not being used anymore. But it used to go through downtown Buffalo. Now it just goes along the side of it, but it ends here in Buffalo. Uh, Shortly here, we'll be arriving in Buffalo. You can see the skyline there. Once we get there, uh, we'll be right at the end, or let's say the beginning of my trip on Lake Erie, which I'll have to go from one end of Lake Erie to the other end to get onto Lake Huron and then Lake Michigan. So, uh, but Buffalo supposedly has a lot of good history, and I'll be taking uh, some video of the downtown area and everything, the little historic area that they have there once you get there. And of course, when in Buffalo, you gotta have buffalo wings. So, have to find me a little place to get me some wings there. Um, Here I am, already tied up here in Buffalo. Uh, this is the little historic area here, and actually, here's the restaurant where I went ahead and got me some buffalo wings. Uh, I guess they originated here, but to be honest with you, the buffalo wings tasted the same as they did in Tampa. So, anyway, let's move on. Here I am eating. After eating at the restaurant, I'm going to go ahead and leave and try and find a little location to spend the night at and tie up to. As I was coming in here to grab something to eat, I had noticed there was a little area that had some docks there, and it was right downtown area. So I'm going to go back there and see if I can tie up there and stay there the night. Since it's so close to downtown, there's a lot of little things you can do, walk around the area and all of that. So uh, there's a skyline of Buffalo, and like I said, once we leave Buffalo, the next day we'll actually be in Lake Erie, and at the end of the Erie Canal. This is the end of the Erie Canal. It was a very nice trip. I enjoyed the Erie Canal, and I think if I ever had the choice of doing something again, would be to go down to Albany, Georgia, rent me a boat or something, and do the Erie Canal trip again, because there's so many little towns, so much history there that that would be a nice little thing to do. So if you guys ever get an opportunity to rent a boat and do the Erie Canal, it's 350 miles long. There's so many little towns you can stop off and tie off. A lot of the little towns won't even charge you to stay. They want you to visit their town because they know you would spend your money going eating and having a drink or two, or going over to their little shops and stuff and doing some shopping. So uh, here in Buffalo, there's a lot of these buildings like this, and there was also some silos. Apparently, when they barges come in from the Erie Canal, they would come in and bring all the wheat and grain and all the things that have to be shipped. And here, it's kind of like where they stored everything. As a matter of fact, General Mills has some silos still here where they still load the wheat and everything for the cereal that General Mills produces. And you'll see those silos later on. And you'll see them also how they light them up at night so they stay lit. Uh, kind of, I guess, kind of to make them look nice. But here's a big warehouse here, and you can see along the side there where the big ships used to tie up to, and then they would unload whatever they had, which most of it was wheat and grain, from my understanding, from talking to the local people here. And it used to be a big uh, commerce area for this when the Erie Canal was still being used to bring commodities down the canal. And then from here they would load up barges and ships and go down to Lake Erie and everything. So everything kind of ran uh, out of Buffalo here. So it's a pretty nice area that I had seen and I had found over here by where we're going to be tying up as soon as I get there. But a lot of this area right in here was the industrial area where, like I said, they had a lot of large silos and everything where they store the wheat and the feed and seeds and everything else. Uh, and this particular building there that we're going through by now, it's pretty big and it's very long. I don't know if it's still active or not, or whether it's being used for anything. But it sure looked big, and it was huge. I mean, it was almost like there at its heyday. I guess it must have been packed with workers and uh, ships coming in and out of here. Tying up there to the seawall and unloading their cargo and everything else. Uh, Pretty interesting. It was nice to see that. Uh, Here we are coming into the docks that I was just telling you about. That's right downtown. Uh, and you can see there's a big ship, a Navy ship there. It looks like a destroyer or a cruiser, one or the other. And I'll be taking film of that a little bit close from a closer angle later on today after I tie up and everything. Now I'm coming up to these other boats that are tied up overnight here. As soon as I tie up, I'm going to find out, whether, what we got to pay or to stay here or not. Some marinas or some places like these, they'll let you stay at no charge, but others they will charge you. So, and then of course you can tie up. Once you tie up, you've got water and electricity here. So I'll be finding that out. Here's the boat that I passed up earlier while I was coming on my way in. I took off and went and grabbed something to eat, and then on my way back now, these guys finally caught up to me, and they're doing the same thing. They're just tying up for overnight because they're also on the move. They're heading also to Lake Erie somewhere, I think. Can't remember exactly where he said he was going, but I'm going to go ahead and sneak in right in here and try and tie up on the side here. Hopefully, like I said, we'll be able to stay overnight here and be able to walk around and film some of the areas here and kind of look at some of the history that belonged here, and a lot of it, is connected to the Erie Canal because of the cargo that used to come up and down the Erie Canal. So now we're gonna, as soon as I tie up here, I'm gonna have to go find out, see, whether I have to pay to stay here or see what it costs to stay here, depending on how much it is. Some people or some docks really don't charge a whole lot, so it's not a big deal. Others do charge more, so I decided not to stay. But for today, I'm staying here overnight. We are supposed to pay, but the person that's supposed to come in and charge me is not around, so they said, well, just wait for him to show up, and then you can pay him. But I started video recording the little areas around here. They had this building right here, pretty interesting. They're building a boat inside of it. It's all being hand built, and everything is being carved, and everything is being done by hand, and like they used to in the old days. And these are a couple of the old ships that they have kept and preserved here. Now the boat that they're building on the inside is actually a canal boat, or an erie canal boat, as they call them. And you can see there they're putting the structure together there. It's all volunteers. All the people working on this boat is all volunteer, for the exception of maybe one or two people that are in charge. But this is actually going to be the back of the boat, the USS Triple. And here's a picture of what it's going to look like when they get done. And this is the ones that they used to have going up and down. That particular boat there is the one that carried passengers on it. They made other ones that would carry the grain and feed and other commodities up and down the Erie Canal. But the particular one that they're building there is actually going to be for passengers, to carry passengers up and down the Erie Canal. Here's that ship that we saw as we were coming in, and it's actually a lot bigger than I thought once I got close. They do have a lot. I noticed they do have a lot of ships here. I didn't even realize, because it was hidden behind this ship here. There's even a submarine here that you'll be seeing here shortly. Here's this one here. Again, I'm not sure, because I wasn't in the Navy, so I'm not sure whether it's a destroyer or it's a cruiser. But I know those two models there. But it has the name of the boat there, and I guess you could look it up and find out what kind of ship it was. But it was pretty interesting. I didn't take a tour of it because they were already closed. So I guess because of the holidays, they closed it earlier or something, whatever. But I didn't get a chance to go in and take the tour of the ship itself on the inside. But very impressive. It's very big. It's very impressive. Definitely had a lot of weapons, a lot of cannons, and a lot of rifles, or not rifles, but all kinds of guns and everything all over the place, mounted everywhere. They also had this airplane there, this jet sitting there, and right behind there on the bottom there, that tan color thing is a tank sitting there. And I guess these were old, I guess retired vehicles already that nobody was using or anything. Here's the submarine I was telling you about. That I didn't see it because it's actually behind that ship there, and you can see how long that ship is. So they kind of snuck this right in between the ship and the land. So it was hard to see originally, but after you walk around the side of it, you can actually see the ship, the submarine itself. I hadn't noticed, or I didn't realize that they actually used a wood plank on the top of the submarine where you walked around in. You would figure, that thing would get wet all the time, soaking the wood, since it had to dive and everything. But here's also a missile, or one of the torpedoes that was used on these ships here. This is the backside of the submarine here, as you can see. It's going pretty. It was also pretty big, pretty long, but it's very, very shallow. Not a whole lot of it is sticking out of the water, so I could see why it would be hard to see when you're out in the open water. Here I'm just taking a film of the area around here, and right behind that, the big ship, is where we're actually tied up at. You can see just a little bit. There you go. Now you can see where I'm tied up at back there. Yeah, that's not the dinghy to the boat. That's actually my boat, the one I'm using to make the trip on. Even though a lot of people say, they can't believe I'm making the Great Loop on that thing. But anyway, here were some cannons I also happened to see laying around the shops and stuff like that, and those were pretty nice. They look pretty good, and they also look pretty old. You can see the wood and everything else and how they used to transport them, I guess, and move them. And then you could see there in the back where they had the receding uh, turrets there, which so you can lower and raise the cannon to make it point whichever direction you want to go. Here's the building where they're putting up that where they're building the ship, the boat that I was telling you about, and it's the Erie Canal Packet Boat Project is what they're calling it, and it's pretty nice. It's going along pretty nice, and like I said, it's all volunteer help as far as putting it up and building it. Uh, so we did go ahead and stay the night. Weather was kind of rough, so decided it's a good idea to stay. Here's nighttime, and here's some of the silos. These silos right here actually belong to General Mills. As I went by there, you could see the General Mill logo on there. And like I said, it's probably still being used to haul the grain and everything, because General Mills is still, in business and still making a lot of products. So this was just the night scene of the area here. You can see that's the big ship there. So uh, this was pretty nice little area to kind of walk around in. We didn't spend a whole lot of time here. Like I said, it was just an overnight thing. After we take off here the next morning, we're actually going to be in Lake Erie and no longer in the Erie Canal, and that'll be our first start of Lake Erie. And like I said, you have to go from one end of the lake to the other end of the lake so that you can get onto Lake Heron. Uh, at the end of Lake Erie and the beginning of Lake Heron is actually Detroit. So that's going to be our next stop in a couple of days here. Uh, Here we are the following morning. There's a catamaran that showed up here, and that thing actually it takes you out on a cruise around the area. Not sure where it went to, but they were loading it up yesterday as they were going out and stuff. But now here we are getting ready to take off again. And like I said, this time what we're doing is uh, we're out of the Erie Canal now, and we'll be going into Lake Erie once I take off from here and I get out of this little bay area here. Uh, what I'm doing is I'm going to go out a little bit further out a little bit, and then go ahead and make a 360-degree turn here, so that you can kind of get one more last look of the area. And it was nice. They had nice little shops all over the place, and like anything else, they're more designed to, hey, boaters come in, tie up, stay overnight, enjoy a nice meal somewhere at a nice restaurant, buy some souvenirs, and then load up your stuff and move on. But uh, I enjoyed the night. Nobody ever showed up to charge me for staying here. So I went and asked one of the other guys on the other boats. I said, well, what do we do? And he said, well, if nobody shows up, I mean, we're just leaving. We're going to leave. So we're just going to untie and leave since nobody showed up. I don't think, they can't say anything to you. So we didn't pay, so we got to stay for free. And that was kind of nice. Anytime you can find a nice little spot like we did. And it was a good thing that we did stay, because actually last night the winds were blowing pretty strong, and it wouldn't have been a nice thing to try and take off yesterday. The winds were too strong and the waves were acting up a little bit. So I'm kind of glad we did wait till this morning. Right now, as you can see, the winds are not bad at all. There is a little bit of a breeze, but you can see the wakes. There's really no wakes out there. The water's nice and smooth and everything. So it's a good day to begin the journey, our new journey of going through Lake Erie now. So it'll probably be about another, I would say maybe 4 days at the most, I think. Maybe even 5 days of going down Lake Erie. That's the thing about these three lakes that I got to go through, is that I have to go all the way down from Lake Erie all the way down to the other end of Lake Erie, go all the way on Lake Huron from one end of Lake Huron all the way up to the next, uh, uh, all the way up to the top of Lake Huron to be able to get on Lake Michigan. And then on Lake Michigan, I have to go all the way down to get to Chicago. So it's kind of like you're crossing all three of these lakes from one end to the other end. Um, but again, that's the fun part, is that, you're traveling, you're enjoying yourself, and we're moving along. This is pretty much going to be the end of this part right here. Like I said, now we're heading out, and we're going to go out to the lake, and we should probably be traveling another 30-35 miles before we find it. Here's the breaker wall where I'll be going through, and once I get on the other side of this breaker wall, we'll actually be on Lake Erie. So that's another part of our trip, of our exciting trip. So hopefully Lake Erie will be pretty good. I've heard that it's a very shallow lake, so when the seas pick up or when the winds pick up, it can get kind of rough. But for right now, here we go again. So until later, that's the end.